everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the MACE Podcast. I'm your host, Marco Macente, and I'm so excited to be here with all of you. I hope you're ready to listen to that episode, as this one is very special and it's going to shake things up for you and for the ones that are aiming for a change. The special guest is the amazing Bonnie Low Kramen from United States. And that's not a coincidence, as Bonnie has been already my guest, and this is gonna be the third time. She's one of the most respected leaders instructor in the admin profession, but she's also a coach, a speaker, a mentor, and of course, an author. And her book, Stuff Matters, was the subject of the episode that we made earlier this year. And of course, that you can find in the Maze Podcast library. But why this episode today is so special? Well, to make that one, I needed to listen to a whisper that's deep inside and that won't let go easily. This whisper is the passion to drive things forward, the passion to go above and beyond, to make the difference, to bring an added value, and to be recognized for what done with such incredible passion. The whisper belongs to everyone, and each one of us has to listen to it, and they should listen to it, as that's the heart of the matter, and that's the way we can shake things up for us and for the ones we work with. We are going to speak about career management, culture, and office environment, analyzing the most actual trends and the one that goes next in our workplace. So let's deep dive and please enjoy our conversation.
Hi, Bonnie. Hello. Welcome to the MACE
Hi,
Podcast.
Marco.
How are you?
Doing great. Had COVID, over it,
Yeah.
onward.
And you are so glistening because we are here in a Zoom call with a video. This episode will be only audio, but I want to let the audience know that you are so passionate, you are so positive, and nothing is stopping you because have a lot of projects that we will be sharing with the audience. So, yeah, you look fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's great to be with you across the ocean. I'm
Yeah.
here in Florida. You're in Italy.
Yeah.
It always feels like such a miracle when we do this.
I completely agree. And I told already the audience that this is a very special episode because we are going to be focusing on something that really matters, right? For me, for you, and for everyone that is looking for a change or that is aiming for a change. So we're going to focusing on career management, culture, office environment as three main topics. So I look forward to deep diving with these three topics with you, Bonnie, in order to share your insights and your experience. So do you agree? Can we start? So, Bonnie, let's start speaking about career management. In collaboration with Kim Pilkington, you wrote an amazing article about this burning and actual topic, and you start analyzing the context in which we work, which in the post-pandemic world is stressful and unpredictable. You encourage people to think about their career with intention and purpose. And you define each individual, the COO, the Chief Career Officer of his or her career incorporated. So can you please let us know why purpose and intention are important more than ever, and what does mean a COO for you?
Thanks, Marco. Actually, the idea began with Kim Pilkington, who reached out to me on LinkedIn. Kim is a strategist, a business strategist, and she was responding to something I had written on LinkedIn. As you know, I write a lot of articles, and she started talking with me about this notion of CCO, Chief Career Officer. And of course, you've been to B2A. I talk a lot about being the CEO of You Incorporated. So the ideas were very much aligned. Here's the basis for it. Historically, especially in the profession of assistance, there has been a sense of victimization. There's been a sense that when assistants have been hired, that they are victims of the role rather than autonomous and in charge of the role, that the job is happening to you, that you're working for somebody, and that assistants have had historically very little control over the profession. And I think in the last 3 years, the rules have gone out the window. The pandemic created such a volatile situation in the workplace that new rules are now applying. And Kim and I agree that it's important to focus on a new way, a new attitude of looking at the assistant profession. And I would argue probably other professions as well. But given that the audience we have for your podcast, the pandemic, we remember the Great Resignation. We remember, mass groups of people leaving the workplace for a variety of reasons. Nothing has disrupted the workplace so much in recent history than the pandemic. And what assistants saw was that, pre-pandemic, leaders wouldn't have thought it was possible to have a staff working from home. But now they were forced to have that, and it worked. So what the assistants of the world learned is that they could have some autonomy over their careers. They could have some, in the United States, there's a term called agency, to have some agency, to have some decision-making power of you about your career. And I'm a big fan of that because, my goodness, during the pandemic, we experienced YOLO, the YOLO economy. You only live once. You had people making very big, serious decisions about their careers that maybe they hadn't thought about ever. But now the pandemic has given staff a new opportunity to approach their careers in a way where they're in charge. And that's an idea I really like. That, my goodness, if the pandemic taught us anything, right, Marco, is that life is short and it can change like that. What we also learned during the pandemic is that leaders were unprepared for what happened. And still, in 2023, many companies are undergoing big changes as they still recalibrate and restructure and reinvent. And now we have the advent of AI, artificial intelligence. So the whole idea is, let us slow down our careers long enough to be intentional about how we are approaching our work. But and let me just give a spoiler alert. It doesn't matter how much technology we have, how many different social media platforms, how much AI there is, it still comes down to people. People hire people. People recommend other people. That's why your connections on LinkedIn are so important. That's why when you go in for interviews, to be very mindful of everyone you're meeting, not just the hiring manager, but the other people in the organization. It all comes down to people. That's the short answer.
Thanks a lot, Bonnie. I completely agree with you. And I want to highlight how it's all about people. And that's why the human touch that we bring to what we do, right, it's so important. Here is the explanation of why intention and purpose that are that belong to human, right? As quality, as topic, and also as assets, right? Because these important assets belong to human, are so important in driving our career more than ever in the post-pandemic world. So thanks a lot for sharing those kind of insights. If we stay in this article, if we stay in this topic and we deep dive a little bit more, in this article, you tell us a 4 steps process to help us navigate in our career journey. The process that you identified with Kim is called FACTS, FACTS. We need the facts, yes, in order to manage our career. But here, FACTS stands for F, face your fears, A, assess your satisfaction, C, create your plan, and T, take action. Can you please let us know more about that?
Yeah. Just like when at BTUA, when we talk about negotiating salary, that the big message is to stick with the facts, to take emotion out of the process. It's business. More than ever, the workplace needs to be treated like the business that it is. And that while searching for jobs and the workplace can often cause emotions in it, the process of crafting your career in 2023 should be fact-based. It should be based on your skills, your interests, your experience, your desire about where you want to live, the desire about the kind of lifestyle you want to live, the kind of culture you want to be involved with, kind of people you want to be surrounded with. So Kim Pilkington came up with FACTS and as an acronym, and it's all designed to focus on the quantifiable facts around the job search and to try as hard as you can to remove the emotion from it. Now, we all want to love what we do, but we're all trying to get to the sweet spot, aren't we? The sweet spot is that wonderful sweet spot that is the coming together of your work, the work you want to do, that you're really good at it, that the market needs it, and the market is willing to pay fairly for it. I call that the sweet spot. That's what we want. And in this workplace of 2023, it's about the new approach to your career that is fact-based, and to look at it that way, to make decisions not because we're just, oh my gosh, so grateful that we're being offered a job, but to really do an evaluation of the job description. Is the job description something that A, you want to do? B, is it realistic to be done by one person? Because oftentimes that's not always the case. And C, is the salary matching what that job description is? So essentially the approach is a two-way negotiation decision rather than just that old paradigm of victimization where okay, here's the job and I get to say yes or no and that's it. That's the only thing what I can do. Pandemic showed us that compromise and negotiation and a conversation about, well, I really enjoy doing that, but I'm not as keen to do that part of the job description. There are those conversations being had right now, and that's a more strategic approach to one's career.
Yes, I totally agree with you. And actually, as an employee, as an individual, I was able, to walk through all these insights and all of these reflection moments that you described here, even in the post-pandemic world, because the business is changed, the workplace is changed, and now employers, but also employees, needs to have this strategic approach when understanding what is the next step for me. And the C of FACT is create your plan, right? So we need to have a plan in place. If you want to focus about a plan that a person can do or can have, let's say, what is, in your opinion, also as per the things that you see in your classes, the moment in which a person should really have an honest conversation, an open conversation with a manager, speaking about what is the potential next step about his or her career, how we can engage our manager, and how we can handle such a kind of conversation.
Those conversations are happening more and more, Marco.
Yeah.
And it's all being born from the fact that HR doesn't have all the answers, nor do leaders. And what they are finding is that this new workplace of 2023 is still creating some new challenges. The whole challenge about, bringing people back into the office or working totally remote, and what do those kinds of things look like? There are new challenges they're facing. So when some employees are referred to as high producers, and they are very highly productive employees, people who you want to retain. And so when those people walk into HR or have a conversation with their leader to say, I really would like to talk about my career path, I'd like to talk about the future of my role here, those conversations are being welcomed, because it means that there's a good chance we're not going to lose you.
Yeah.
And they don't want to have that happen. And that's super important. Here's the thing, though. When candidates are first interviewing for jobs and they're about to be offered a job, the time to have that very first conversation about career path is right then, Marco.
Yeah.
It's right at the very beginning about, could you tell me the typical career path for someone who begins in this role? And that tells hiring manager, that tells executive that you're thinking of the future.
Yeah.
That conversation about the future shouldn't necessarily happen for the first time a year into your work or 2 years into the work. Now, in a pre-pandemic world, there was a term called job jumpers. Recruiters, hiring managers, HR directors, they were very aware of the job jumpers, people who seem to go from job to job, right? Every couple of years.
Yeah.
That kind of stigma does not exist as much anymore. Longevity is valued still, but the pandemic created a situation where changing positions is not necessarily looked upon negatively if you have a reasonable explanation about why that happened. That there was such volatility in the workplace that and people were having to, take action about their lives, about different things. And so there is a deeper, more complete understanding of that now. So you ask, when do you know it's time to move on, though? When a staffer has that honest conversation with their executive or with HR about the future at the company, and you're not hearing what it is you want to hear, and or might there be training available to get you where you want to go? It's important for staff to understand how invested is the leadership of your company in your success, in your professional development. In the end, you're in charge of your career. So it's about evaluating, first of all, having the courage to have that conversation in the first place, which does take courage because, no one trains us to do that. But it's about taking a hard look at where you are right now and to decide, are you happy with the salary? Are you happy with the job description? Are you happy with the people who you get to be with on a day in, day out basis? And frankly, it doesn't hurt to explore what's out there. And it certainly, I believe every assistant, every staffer has the right to express and articulate what it is you're wanting for your career.
Mm-hmm.
And the question becomes, is it possible to achieve that in the confines of your role that you're in right now at this particular company. It may not be necessary at all to leave the company. It might just mean moving to another department or collaborating on a revised job description. I see that happening, and I believe there's every reason to have conversations like that. And that's the creation of a plan. That's making sure your materials are really up to date and very easy to read and access. And so you're putting together a plan for your own career. And this is about being your CCO, your Chief Career Officer.
I cannot get a more realistic explanation of what the COO is all about, Bonnie. Thanks a lot for giving us this tremendous and amazing explanation. Thanks a lot. So, Bonnie, now moving on, I have another question for you. Speaking more about the workplace in which we work, I would like to focus on an aspect that is hitting me personally in this last month. The working environment and especially the office environment this versus the remote working environment. I'm working remotely, since the pandemic, but we are seeing some companies that are calling back the employees to the office, big companies such as Zoom, such as Google, and the big pharma companies as well. So how do you rate this phenomenon? Is related only to the money and that the companies are spending in order to keep the office up and running, or there is a strategy behind?
Well, it's complicated, and wow, this issue is emerging as a very hot button into the remainder of the year and into 2024 for sure, mainly because leaders and HR first of all, they were not prepared for it, but second of all, it happened so fast and they didn't have a way to predict would productivity, not only be up, but stay up. And what would this do to employee retention and employee connection between each other? And so now we're starting to see some of the results. And in many companies, staff are resistant to come back into the office. Many are compromising and they are having conversations with the staff. There's a new term emerging called no-fly zone. I just wrote a new article about it. A no-fly zone is the kind of deal breaker times of day that staff is protecting. And we're now caring about those things more than we ever did pre-pandemic. The idea that, Susan cannot do meetings after 3:00 on a Wednesday because that's when she gets her children. So everybody on the team knows we're not going to book anything after 3 p.m., whatever time zone they're talking about. Those are no-fly zones that managers and leaders are needing to care about what those new parameters are. Here's what we now know is that even though productivity can happen with people working fully remote, that there is value in bringing people together to be in person at least some of the time. But it's not one size fits all. That's the key. Mm-hmm. The most successful companies are the ones who are treating this in a customized way. Yeah. That there's one company, for example, that the CEO decided and the team decided that the staff needs to be in the office 11 days per month. And then it's up to each group about which 11 days are there. And what that requires, a decision like that requires strong leadership to manage that kind of time. There are other organizations that have chosen as a team, we're going to go in together Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And some groups love that, absolutely love it. What most teams are doing, though, is they're allowing flexibility for those people who perhaps that won't work 100% of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, no system is going to be able to work 100% of the time. Even the companies that are fully remote, no brick and mortar at all, even they are pulling together the team in person once a quarter. They together make a decision, because they're global and they're in different cities. They decide, okay, in Q1, we're going to be in London. In Q2, we're going to be in Frankfurt. And together they decide on the dates of those meetings. And those are the companies that are the most successful, are the ones who are treating this in a customized way.
Mm-hmm.
A hybrid, the headlines are hybrid for the win. Hybrid is here to stay. That there are going to be very few companies, some companies have to be in 5 days a week, hospitals, and there are some service-oriented places that you've got to be there.
Yeah.
But for those who don't, hybrid is the way it's working. And the smartest leaders are the ones who see the value of bringing people together. And I think you've seen that yourself, is that there's a big difference between working totally remotely with someone and then actually getting a chance to be in a room with them.
Yes, and this was one of the topics in our last conversation, Bonnie, right? The possibility to get together in a room, sharing, exchanging information that are related to a project, for example, rather than meeting virtually in a Zoom call or through Teams, sharing the same information. I mean, the impact that those kind of information can have on you and on the project are completely different. And this is because of the human touch that we touched in our first question, right? We are humans and we need such a kind of connections in order to, synchronize and feel on the same page. Because ultimately, if we are not meeting together and if we are not in a room, are we really on the same page if we are not in the same room?
Right. And that humans need to be with other humans.
Yeah,
and that's how rapport is developed. That's how we learn to care about each other. That's the X factor, right? Is that we're all doing our jobs. But then what makes a person go above and beyond? It's because people do things for people, not
of course.
the company necessarily.
Yeah.
So it is proving itself to be extremely important to insist, to make it an expectation that we are going to get together, and that is going to have some fallout. There's another factor in play. Not everybody is comfortable on webcams. Not everybody is, companies are having to create rules around webcams on, webcams off. And then what makes a person feel comfortable speaking up on their video call? So there's a new phenomenon emerging called proximity bias. And it is the idea that what is emerging is that the people who are choosing to go into the office physically, whether they're choosing or they can or they're being told to, they actually have an advantage over the people who are at home or who are working remotely, who may or may not have any choice about it. But what's emerging is that they actually have an advantage because they have proximity. They're within earshot of where decisions are making happening. You've heard the expression out of sight, out of mind. And if people are literally invisible, then it requires a real intentionality to stay visible in a hybrid remote environment. And again, what is also emerging right along with that, Marco, is the need for strong leadership to manage that. That's the thing that not a lot of people are talking about. Like, it's all well and good to create these rules, like 11 days a month and Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. But who's keeping track of that? And so
who's gonna cascade? Yeah, those
Say
kind
that
of
again.
strategies. Who is going to cascade such a kind of rules into the teams in order to make sure that the teams feel comfortable with such a kind of
Yes.
rules? That's about leadership. Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And there are leaders that are concerned. There are a couple of other factors here. You know, there are leaders who tell me they're concerned about a dual society. You know, the people going into the office and the people who are working remotely, that it feels like a two-class system and a setup for some potential conflict unless there's an intentionality about making sure that everyone is connected and making sure that the people who are working remotely or hybrid are in the loop and kept informed. And you know, it really puts a burden on, you know, super effective communication. And that's going to, I believe, emerge as one of the top skills going forward, are the people who can successfully manage all of this fractional or fragmented staff. You know,
Yeah.
they're all over the place.
Yeah. It requires a strong leadership, as you mentioned, and also experience in
Mhm.
order to understand how to manage those kind of things, treating the teams as a part of individuals, right? So understanding the real needs of each individual and summing up the trend and understanding who is comfortable with something and who is not comfortable with something else.
Right.
This is the key that, in my opinion, also leaders should read, you know, such a kind of things that are happening. And flexibility, one size fits all, of course, are the things that we need to remind that there is no one size fits all.
Yeah.
Flexibility, customizing, tailoring the approach is something that for me is the best due to the complexity of the, the
Yeah.
reality that we have.
And, you know, I'm so glad you brought this up because I think given your age as a millennial, there's
Yeah.
a belief out there that this desire to be in person is only kind of an older person's desire.
Mhm.
But it's very important, I think, that you're highlighting that even at your young age, that
Yeah.
you find real value in coming together in person, right?
Yeah. Especially when there are key meetings or when there is a project to be kicked off, or when there is
Yeah.
an important also achievement to be shared with the team. Imagine if we can celebrate a project achievement in person with the entire team rather than just sending an email because there is an achievement that the team had. So I think that even celebrating altogether an achievement can even foster and reinforce the connections that we can have as peers within
Yeah.
the same team. So yeah,
It's a hot subject, and I think it's going to remain to be seen what companies do this well and
yeah,
what companies don't do it well. And the way you're going to be able to tell are the retention issues, are the
yeah.
retention figures, the numbers.
Of course, of course. So thanks a lot for sharing your insights and your experience also on this amazing and actual topic that we are living and we are seeing
Sure.
across the industries and the companies all around the world. I have another question for you, Bonnie, and this is more related to your amazing book that, of course, you wrote recently and that you launched last February this year. One topic is about the working environment, and we mentioned about the offices, the working environment in which we work, and the one thing that for me matters a lot is the culture. You dedicated one chapter in your book, Stuff Matters, to speak about culture, and the lesson learned is that there is no one size fits all, as we mentioned, but it is more about values, shape, and strategy. So
Right.
can you please tell us why dedicating one chapter to culture in the organization and why, what is the role that leaders have in instilling the culture among their staff?
Yeah. Culture is one of those intangibles that is a company's reputation. And it all does begin with leadership. It's about if we're talking about staff being intentional about their careers, it would be about evaluating the culture. One way to do that, for example, is to go to the website of a company and take a look at the images and the videos and the language that is used to describe what it means to work at the company. Most companies have a careers tab on there, but, just in general, what do the images look like? And I can tell you that people of color will look at a website, and if they do not see people who look anything like they do, they're not going to apply. So that tells you something about the culture and about the commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion for, potentially, right?
Yeah.
Job descriptions help communicate the culture. The online presence about how is it that a company is representing itself in the community? Are they involved in the community at all? It's about, we get to decide who is it that we want to align ourselves with and spend time with on a day in, day out basis. And, the word goes around, if a company is committed, for example, to work-life balance, that it becomes more than just words on a website, that if they actually have policies around that, and is it family friendly? Is there professional development opportunity for staff? That's all part of the culture. That's all saying to the employees who are the backbone of the company, how invested is the company in me and my success? And, every culture is different, but it doesn't just happen. Culture doesn't just happen. It's an intentionality about manifesting vision and purpose in, not only whatever they're selling, every company is in the business of making money, but then what? What more is there that enhances the experience for the employees? And I think many leaders have been taking a fresh look, genuine look at the culture and how we, part of our culture is that when we bring everybody in on it's Pizza Wednesdays, that everybody is excited about coming in on Wednesdays because we get food, and it's really the culture is about making sure that it's worth everybody's time for going in. Part of the culture can be transparency, meaning leadership who shares honestly with the staff about the future and about involving staff in the decisions around the remote workplace and hybrid work. And, that speaks a great deal about the culture. Does that help?
Of course, and I totally agree with you, especially because now a lot of companies are making their manifesto. They are making a lot of work in sharing and highlighting what the culture is all about. So we are going to have employees that are choosing companies because of their culture, not because of the money, because of the job, because of their role. So culture is part of the decision making, and is part of the a topic that an employee is gonna, or a future employee is gonna to take into consideration when moving or choosing a company, and that's why I feel that this is very important for me.
I have an example of what happened recently. I was helping a CEO hire a new executive assistant, and in the job description on LinkedIn, we included the line, the CEOs are committed to a no drama culture. No drama. And that post, the rest of the job description was very well written and everything, but they ended up getting a ton of candidates and ended up hiring a great candidate. But that line alone, I think, matters to people in a time when stress is high and bullying is still rampant, and there's still sexual harassment, and there's still unfair practices. For a CEO to say they advocate a no drama culture, I think that that's a really solid example of
Yeah,
how a CEO, especially if they mean it, and
yeah, of course.
it's not just words, but it's I think that matters a lot to people because we've been through so much stress and anxiety. It's
Yeah,
like, the attitude is, can we please just do our jobs and not have to worry about, getting bullied anymore? And,
yeah, of course.
drama. We're kind of like over the drama.
Yeah. No, that is a practical example, and thanks a lot for sharing it, Bonnie. So,
Mm,
and let's see that it's a good sign, right? To see that something is changing, and we can hope to have a
yeah.
new trend in the workplace. So, thanks a lot also for sharing such a kind of experience. Wow, our conversation is getting hotter, and we are getting a lot of new insights. And I'm sure that the audience will treasure the episode as I'm treasuring it.
I hope so.
Bonnie, thanks a lot. And now wrapping up today, which are speaking about the future, speaking about your perspective.
Yeah.
Now you have written a book. You are also
Mhm.
making a lot of things for your business, for helping assistants all around the world. Which are the trends that you see in the workplace, and which are the trends in which we are getting to?
Okay. So we talked about one already, and that is that hybrid is here to stay.
Yeah,
We're never going back to 2019, never. So the smartest executives are the ones who wrap their minds around involving the staff on the creation of new systems. The trend that is absolutely emerging is indicative with a quote that I read this morning from a CEO in the United States. And she said, 95% of my job as a CEO is putting the right people in the right seats.
wow.
It's about talent acquisition. And so it's not only getting the right people in the right seats, but it's keeping them there.
Yeah, retention.
And what's keeping them there, Marco, is investment in training.
Yeah,
That's what I see. I mean, just this week, I've never been busier, frankly. I've had two gigantic companies come to me and hiring me to train the administrative staff because there is such a desire to retain high producers. And they know that offering professional development is a key way of doing that. So budgets are being created and not only one and done, but an ongoing training plan in order to nurture and invest in the staff who need to be in those seats. Does
yeah.
that make sense?
Of course. And I foresee such a kind of trend, and I completely agree with you because we see a lot of articles, a lot of posts. You also wrote your book for that reason, because you were able to understand that those kind of trends are getting, and you wanted to bring your value, right? Writing a book in order to future-proof your knowledge and your experience and to share them all around the world. So yeah, thanks a lot for sharing those kind of insights. And let's see what is going to happen, because I'm sure that we will need to get together to discuss a little bit of the trends and to see where we are.
Yeah, for sure. I love that, we're very future focused, and it's a very exciting time right now. But exactly where we started today, it's having a new attitude, a fresh look at how we're approaching our careers. It's no longer the old rules, that there's a lot more autonomy available for staff. And I'm very heartened by that. And I'm very optimistic about the future because of it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So let's stay positive, and let's bring this added value to what we do, because of course we are passionate, and we let our passion drive the things forward. Thanks a lot, Bonnie. It has been a pleasure to meet you. I wish you all the best, and of course, keep in touch.
Thank you for your great work, Marco.
Bye-bye.
Bye.